Today's gardening topic is harvesting. So we're going to talk about when your vegetables are ready to harvest and what you can do with them after harvest. So we're going to start with corn, which is a staple in Muscogee diet. This particular corn is Potawatomi white corn. We got the seeds from the Muscogee Food Sovereignty Initiative. So whenever you're ready to harvest, one thing you're going to look for is these brown and dry silks. Brown and dry silks mean that your corn is probably ready for harvest. If the silks are still sticky and kind of gold or pink or yellow like this one, your corn probably isn't ready. One sure way you can check to see if it's ready is if you just start pulling some of the ears back and expose the kernels. You'll just poke one of those kernels with your fingernail, and if it's white and milky like this, that means it's ready. If it's clear and watery, that means it's not ready. And if you poke it and no substance comes out at all, it's probably overripe. So once you determine your corn is ready, you're just going to want to twist it off of the corn stalk so that way you don't damage any other corn growing around it. So just keep twisting until it comes off. And you can leave it in the husk or you can take it off. I'll go ahead and take this off just so we can see. Ooh. Sometimes with your corn, we have some examples over here. This is a rainbow corn that we grew. Sometimes your cob will have some kernels and some not. This usually means that either your corn wasn't fully pollinated. In this case, I think our corn might have been too spaced out and it didn't get fully pollinated. This is also a sign of stress. So if your corn was experiencing severe drought, extreme heat, bugs, any kind of stressful conditions, sometimes your corn will literally abort its own kernels just to preserve energy. So that could also be what's happening. Next we'll go to beans. So for beans, one thing you're going to want to look for is the firmness. So this one, it's still a little bendy, but not as bendy as this one. You're also going to compare size. So this one is obviously bigger, thicker, and more lumpy than this one. So I would say this one is ready. With beans, it's important to harvest them at peak maturity. You don't want to harvest them too early or too late. And you can just twist them off. So this is a bean that's a little too mature. It turned white. This one's probably no good. And you can see how much bigger and thicker it is than a not ready bean. And beans are good in the fridge, I would say for 5 to 10 days max. If you put them in the crisper. So these are our Roma tomatoes. When harvesting tomatoes, one of the main things you're going to want to look for is the color. I always say if at least like 2/3 of the tomato is red, then it's ready to harvest. You can also just tell by how easily it comes off the plant. So like this one, I would say it's not quite ready because it's not 2/3 red. Here's another one. It looks good. If you want to harvest green tomatoes, I would say just harvest when they barely start turning red. So like this would be a good one to harvest. You can tell it's kind of starting to get that orangish red tint. So if you're harvesting for green tomatoes, this would be a good one. Tomatoes continue to ripen off of the vine. So whenever you pull it just a little bit early, it's going to continue to ripen for a few days. And then tomatoes can be stored at room temperature or in the fridge for, I'd say, about 5 to 7 days after harvest. So next we'll do peppers. Most peppers start out green like this. This is also when they're not as hot. As time goes on, the peppers mature, they're going to turn red, orange, yellow, purple, whatever the end result color is supposed to be. As peppers mature, they also get hotter, so you want to keep that in mind when harvesting. Sometimes peppers will turn from green to black and then to their mature color. That's totally normal. That usually means that they're just exposed to really high heat or to a lot of sun. But your peppers will usually be fine. Here's one that's kind of turning black. So it'll just turn black and then red. That just means the pepper is exposed to some stressful conditions. So for cucumbers, you're just gonna wanna harvest, I say when they're about 6 to 8 inches long, and you wanna make sure you harvest before they turn yellow, just for the best taste. This one is perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off. There's another one over here. This one's kind of starting to turn yellow, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull it. Cucumbers, I would say, are good like 3 to 5 days if you store them in the fridge. One thing I've been doing to extend the shelf life of my cucumbers is I bought perforated bags off Amazon. They're just like kind of like a plastic bag with little holes in them. That has really maximized the life of my cucumbers after harvest. We also have some okra over here. Okra matures really, really, really fast, so you can probably harvest this every day if you have some. This okra pod right here is perfect. It's about medium size. See how it's slightly bigger than that one? So you'll just twist that off. If you let your okra get too mature and too long, kind of like this one, it's just going to be rough and kind of fibrous, and it won't be as good. So you want to make sure you harvest it at the right size. And okra matures really, really fast, so you want to keep an eye on it. So for cantaloupes, one of the telltale signs that it's ready is the color. This one, I would say, is almost ready. It's still got some green in it, but you can see where it's starting to turn like an orangish yellow tint. That's usually a telltale sign that it's ready. You can also smell it, and if this cantaloupe smell is really, really strong and the cantaloupe is yellow or orange, it's probably ready. You can see this one, it's a small one, but it's still got a lot of green. Not even close to being ready. So with watermelons, it's kind of tricky to tell whenever they're ready because there's so many things to consider and so many different varieties of watermelon. So I just kind of like to look for a bunch of different signs to see if it's ready. One thing is this curly tendril right here. This is what connects the watermelon to the stem. There's usually a tendril right above that, this curly thing. If this is still green, your watermelon's probably not ready. When your watermelon is ripe and ready, this will turn brown, and sometimes it'll even shrivel up and fall off. That's one telltale sign for most varieties of watermelon. Another thing you can do is flip it over and see where the watermelon meets the ground. It's still pretty green on this one, but it'll usually turn yellow or maybe like white on most varieties. That's also a sign that it's ready. For some lighter colored watermelons like this one, it can be kind of hard to tell judging by that spot. But as you can see, the tendril's starting to turn brown, but there's still some green in it, so it's definitely not ready. If there's still any green in the tendril, your watermelon probably isn't ready. We tried vertical growing our watermelons, so we put this one in a sling just to take some of the weight off of the vine. But as you can see, her tendril is still really green also. We don't have any squash in our garden anymore. The squash bugs unfortunately got all of our squash. But squash is going to kind of be similar to cucumbers in terms of harvesting. You're going to want to harvest it when it's about 6 to 8 inches long, when it's a really bright yellow if you're growing the yellow squash, and when the outside is still kind of soft. If your squash is hard and solid, it's probably overripe. You still want it to be a little soft before harvest. Also, if you're growing your vegetables from seed, most crops take about 60 to 90 days or 2 or 3 months to reach full maturity and harvest point. So you're going to want to plan accordingly. Most of our seeds were started in March and it's July, and we're just now getting to a point where we're steady harvesting every single day. And it's been about 3 or 4 months now. So most of your vegetables post-harvest can be stored for up to 5 to 7 days in the fridge or at room temperature. Again, I recommend buying perforated bags for produce. That's just going to help extend the life of your vegetables, whether they're room temperature or in the fridge. You can also look into canning some of your vegetables. It's actually a really simple process, and we'll probably have some classes on that here at the college. But you can can, your cucumbers, your beans, your tomatoes, things like that, and that's going to also extend the shelf life of your produce after harvest.
It's aji honditos yet in dagi dondos yet. So when we were talking about harvest, and specifically this corn at this time, harvest time during the summer here. Most times when we harvest things, it's like during early in the morning before you touch water or eat or anything. You go out and take some of this, especially like about now when there's green corn ceremonies going on everywhere. This is for the sacred acts of our people, respecting this tree. We call it, some people call it tree of life for the Muskogee. And then this corn, the way it has given our population a great boost at one time, and making our nations much stronger. We honor that today when we harvest the corn, and then we fast when we initiate it into our communities, like the beans and other foods that we have songs for. But this is one that has been initiated, so to speak, in our Muscogee ways during the green corn ceremonies. So this is one of the things. When we begin to harvest all of it, we begin to wrap it and store it for the winter. But all of it has a sacred purpose. And many times we forget about the sacredness of it all because of our fast-paced world today. But we've got to step back and look at what provided our nation some sustenance and growth, and it has been this corn. Although we've evolved in understanding how to use it and how our bodies process the corn in and of itself, we add a little bit of wood ash to it. So this is one of the ways that our indigenous science has evolved in understanding how food works with us, and we honor this big, beautiful plant. Madjo. Yeah, this one here, especially this one's getting really tall. These chapchagidoidandos are very long, tall, 16 feet tall when everything is done properly. But they're still growing though. So join us when we have our fall time celebration. We'll bring some of our good produce out and share with everybody.
Mado for watching today's gardening series. You can come to the garden on campus at the College of the Muscogee Nation every Thursday from 11 to 12 and visit our garden in person.